Maamar that we learned, and let's go somewhere. Today is Purim. And if I go over, as Baal Shem Tov says, if you read the story of Esther, as if it's something that happened a long time ago, you haven't fulfilled. Please. If you read it as if it's something that happened a while ago, you haven't done the mitzvah. You have to read it like it's happening now. So the Maamar that we learned, we never learned before. It's a new Maamar from the Rebbe. It just came out now. The Maamar starts with these words. On that night, the king's sleep was disturbed. And the custom is that when the reader gets up to those words, the king's sleep was disturbed, he has to raise his voice. Why does he raise his voice? So the Maril says, because that's when the main miracle started. But the question is, it seems that the game changer was Esther's arrival to Achashverosh, and Achashverosh responds and puts out the royal scepter. It seems like that's the main miracle. Why do we say the main miracle is why do we say that the main miracle is the king sleeping disturbed? So the previous Rebbe says in his Maamar, the reason is because the king refers to the king of the world, Hashem, and his sleep is disturbed. So that doesn't answer the question though, because that just transfers the question to something else. How can we say Hashem is asleep? Doesn't the Torah say the guardian of Israel does not sleep in slumber? How can we say Hashem is asleep and then he needs to be woken up? What does that mean? So the answer is, Baal Shem Tov says Hashem is your shadow. And the Zohar says this world is similar to the world above. So when a Jew walks around with a smiling face in this world, so then Hashem shows him also a smile and kindness from above. And the opposite, shalom, the opposite. So since the Jewish people were in a state of sleep, so that caused, and instead of Hashem being there for us in a way that he does not sleep or slumber, instead he mirrored our behavior. Hashem is our shadow, and he also was in a state of sleep. So what does it mean to be asleep? So when you're asleep, number one, your eyes are closed. Number two, your faculties aren't functioning in a regular way. You don't see things that you ordinarily see, your eyes are closed, and also your mind isn't functioning the same way. You also could dream. When you're dreaming, you could put together things in your dream that are really the opposite of each other, nothing to do with each other. You could see absolute lies in your dream, and to you, they look like they're real. So our sight is supposed to be looking at the following. The Torah says, lift your eyes to the sky and see how Hashem made the world. That's what our eyes are supposed to be. Our ears are supposed to be Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. They're supposed to be listening, supposed to be thinking about how Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. That's what our eyes and ears are supposed to be. And that doesn't just mean our eyes and ears, but the ability to discern things is associated with the ear. So hearing is associated with Bina, and Chachma is associated with seeing. So our Chachma and Bina is supposed to be immersed in the truth of Hashem. So the meaning of closing our eyes and our ears, being asleep, means that we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. We're looking at the physical world, and we're affected by it. I saw a letter of the Rebbe yesterday. I shouldn't say yesterday, right? The Rebbe says to this Jew who asked the Rebbe, how could he rejoice in Purim? He looks at all that's going on. How could he be happy? And the Rebbe said, if Hashem command you to be happy on Purim, and he command you to be happy in a way that their joy should continue after Purim, in a way that has affected the entire year, it's for sure that Hashem gives you the ability, Hashem gives you not just the ability, Hashem gives you the reason to be happy, that there should be an open and clear good, and nothing should conceal godliness. You look marvelous, Dr. Bresson.
Thank you. I'm not concealing anything.
So being asleep means that our mind isn't in the truth of Hashem, our mind is somewhere else. And being awake is like when the Bais Bezalel was standing. The Bais Bezalel was standing, and we saw godliness vividly, and everything was clear and it was obvious. The truth of Hashem, we saw 10 miracles every day. That's being awake. So because in the exile we were in a state of sleep, so Hashem is our shadow, and Hashem, the heart of you, the one you love, mirrors your heart. So since we were in a state of sleep, Hashem mirrors our behavior. So instead of Hashem being like the guardian of Israel who does not sleep or slumber, he is a sleepy Joe. He's asleep, and it looks like, chas shalom, as in the language of the Zohar, That looks like he left and went far, far away, out of the park, somewhere, gone, oh, he's out. That's what it looks like. And what's happening is, just like in a dream, you are connecting two opposite things. So to Hashem, it looks like when he is, so to speak, acting like he's asleep, there's two opposite things that are connected. He's giving abundance, but he's not going to his beloved people, it's going to the opposite. It's going to those people which are oppressing the Jewish people. And that's why the Jewish people ask, wake up, Hashem, why are you sleeping? So how do we cause Hashem to wake up? So since we're talking about being in a state of deep sleep, where all of our soul powers aren't functioning the way they're meant to, so to use more of our power of sight and our power of understanding, it ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work because all those soul powers have been tainted. You're gonna try to see the truth of Hashem. You know where your eyes are. You know it looks real to you. So in order to cause the king's sleep to be disturbed, to wake up, so to speak, the king, the Jewish people have to wake up also. And how do they wake up? So it says in Song of Songs, I am asleep, but my heart is awake. It means that even though externally there is our mind and our heart looks like it's plugged up, but there's a part of us that's never asleep. And what is that part? That's the pintali, the essence of the neshama. And the essence of the neshama is never asleep. And Hashem is the heart of the Jewish people. And when we wake up our innermost heart, and we dedicate ourselves we give ourselves over to Hashem without any limitation, with Mesiras Nefesh, that triggers in heaven also that Hashem's heart is awake. And Hashem becomes overtly and clearly and vividly and tangibly the guardian of Israel, does not sleep or slumber. So after Song of Songs describes us as my heart is awake, I am asleep, my heart is awake, when we're in that state, the verse continues and says, the voice of my beloved is knocking, and the voice of my beloved is saying, open up for me, my sister, my bride, my dove, my complete one. What's going on over here? First of all, let's define who my beloved is. My beloved is Hashem. Hashem's love is from his very deepest self. Hashem's love comes from his very essence. And Hashem's love extends to our deepest essence, to our deepest self. And even if we've made all kinds of mistakes, and we don't have all of those things that we're supposed to be, we're not the dove, we're not the complete one, we're not the sister, we're nothing. Yet Hashem still knocks on the door anyways, and he cries, and he says, please open up for me. I know that you look like Esav, Hashem says. I know that you are wearing the clothing of Esav, and you're acting like Esav, and you're thinking like Esav. Still, I love you. Therefore, Hashem says, please open up for me. And how much should you open up for me? So it says in the Talmud, Hashem is asking, open up for me like the eye of a needle. What's the meaning of an eye of a needle? So we learned that there's the point of the needle, and there is the eye of the needle where the thread goes through. The eye of the needle means that a geometric point is nothing smaller than that point. Hashem is asking us to open up in the tiniest way, specifically the tiniest way. What does that mean? The tiniest way means, in a simple sense, it sounds like Hashem is saying, make the tiniest move to me and we'll go places, and everything else will be good. But the tiniest way means Hashem is asking us to summon our essence. As I said before, when your mind and your heart aren't the way they're meant to be, so you have to summon something deeper. And that is represented by a geometric point. That isn't mentioned in this discourse, but other places, chassidus talks about Purim being a one-day holiday. It's one day. It's something which, the fact that it's smaller means that we're not talking about different soul powers that are being activated and being used. We're talking about our smallest self, meaning our essence. The idea of essence being small is that it's not like Israel is called the good and spacious land. The good and spacious land means that every part of you is just radiating with your faith and your devotion and your mind and your heart, and you're so good. You're the good and spacious land. It's all over there. So being in a state of opening up the eye of a needle means that it's just a turn to Hashem. You're turning to Hashem from your deepest self. I mean, think about the story of Song of Songs. The handsome shepherd and the maiden have agreed to meet, and he doesn't show up, and everyone scorns her. And now she's come home, and all of a sudden he's knocking on the door. So she doesn't want to open the door. Why would she want to open the door to this guy? This guy is the one who caused her to be ashamed, this one who spurned her, and who promised things, didn't do it. So why is she turning towards him? She's turning towards him because she realizes, yeah, all these things have happened. However, this is my beloved. I know this is my beloved. This it comes from a deep place. It's a point. It's not from the mind and the heart. So it's both a virtue, and I think it doesn't speak clearly about in this discourse about exactly how. It speaks clearly, but whatever. It's not so clear to me what the virtue and the deficiency of being at the geometric point. But I think there is a virtue and deficiency in this. One is that it's coming from a place where there's nothing else. On the other hand, it's very, very powerful. It's a very powerful turn. You're turning from your very essence, something which has no definition. That's the meaning of a geometric point. So Hashem says, you do this, and I will open up for you like the opening of the entrance of the Heichal in the temple, of the entrance of the Ulam. That means Hashem says, I will get you so that your deepest self will become everything about you. You will become my sister, you'll become my bride, you'll become my dove, you'll become my complete one. What are those things? So it says about Avram Avinu, he was called Hashem's sister. Although Hashem doesn't have any relatives, of course. However, the idea of being a sister is, the word sister means bond. Sister means connection. So sister, in our service of Hashem, is about two things. It's about our hidden love for Hashem. It's about, instead of us turning to Hashem from our very essence, it's about loving Him. And it's about being a sister means to make a connection. It means whatever is going on in your life, you pierce beneath the surface of what's going on, and you look for the rule of divine providence. Elsewhere, Hasidic masters talk about Esther being taken into the church of Achashverosh, her losing divine inspiration, and her saying the words of King David, my God, why have you left me? So Chassidus explains the words, why have you left me? Chassidim explain, Hasidic masters explain, for what purpose? Lema, what purpose have you left me? I've lost an inspiration, there must be a purpose. The idea of being Esther is being a sister to Hashem means that you look for the rule of divine providence. You look beneath the surface and you say, what is the rule of divine providence? This must have some message for Hashem, for me. As Avram said, Hashem is Keloilam. He didn't say is Hashem the master of the world. He is the world. The world itself is godly. That's the idea of being a sister, to connect everything to Hashem. That's what Avram did. He connected the world to Hashem, and so too for us to be like Avram means to connect everything in our lives to Hashem. Because the truth is that not only is Hashem creating the world every second from His words, but the world only comes into existence because of His will. And will, unlike other soul powers, is unique in that while all other soul powers are things, they're tools, they have the ability to think, to feel, will is the soul itself being drawn somewhere. Will means that there's nothing other than the soul going somewhere. Will is not, when you have intellect, when you have feelings, there's tools you're using. Will means that you're drawn. There's nothing outside of you in will. And desire, it's just you want something. There's you and you're being pulled somewhere. Desire in Hebrew is the same letters as the word pipe. You're being funneled somewhere through your desire. Just about you going somewhere. So because Hashem's desire is what brings the world into existence, just like our desire, once our desire stops, everything is gone, nothing else, so too the world has no existence. All it is a desire of Hashem. There's nothing there. So being Hashem's sister means you realize that and you feel it's just what's happening now is what Hashem wants to happen. That's all that's happening. So the big point here is that not just is something that you learn in chassidus, the Rebbe says this is something you're able to convey to your animal soul. For your animal soul to get that Hashem is the one by whose word the world comes to be and the world exists. So that's being a sister. Then the next step is to become Hashem's bride. The word bride also is related to the word one who feeds me, the one who nourishes me. So it says the Jewish people are called the one who feed Hashem. Why are they called the ones who feed Hashem? So what's the eating in general? Why do you have to eat? The reason you have to eat is because that's what you will eat or drink before the Megillah, but maybe you can use chassidus, you're allowed to. I don't know. Why do we have to eat? We have to eat in order to connect the soul to the body. In order to connect the soul to the body, you have to eat. Because your soul is spiritual, body is physical, how are you going to connect them? So to Hashem is absolute spirituality. Hashem is beyond spirituality. Hashem is infinite. So for Hashem to connect to the world, to bring Hashem's infinite light to the world, that's called eating. So we learn there's two things that bring Hashem's infinite light to the world. One is through Torah. Torah is called Hashem's bread. Studying Torah brings the infinite light of Hashem to the world. And also, it's when we act in an infinite way, even though we're finite people, and whatever for us is beyond is not really beyond. It's just, for us it's beyond yet. When we go beyond ourselves and love Hashem, with without any limitations, beyond our mind, when we go beyond ourselves, so Hashem is a shade for the Jew. Hashem is in what's in our heart is reflected, so to speak, in the heart of Hashem. So if we go beyond our limitations, we also draw down the infinite light of Hashem. And we draw the infinite light down into the physical world. So that's the idea of being Hashem's bride, the idea of feeding Hashem, bringing His infinite light into the world. But both being Hashem's sister and being His bride still always circles back to the world. In the sister model relationship, it's about finding Hashem in creation, but seeing Hashem in creation, but looking for divine providence. In the bride model relationship, it's about channeling His infinite light into the world, albeit by you going beyond yourself, but it's still about bringing His infinite light into the world. You're acting in a miraculous way beyond yourself, and that's how you're causing miracles to happen in your life. Fantastic. But it's still about you and about your world. Then there is a higher level. The higher level is my dove. What's the other dove? Doves look at each other. Why do they look at each other? Because they love each other. So there's the idea of the Jew looking at the glory of Hashem just because a Jew is pasmak of it. The Jew just enjoys the Eibishter. The Yid's pleasure is Hashem. Hashem's pleasure is the Jew. So it's not because of what Hashem is going to give him or what's going to change. It's just looking at the glory of the King. So a Jew enjoying the truth of Hashem and a Jew enjoying Hashem. So when a Jew looks at Hashem in that way with such love, that causes also that Hashem's love is to the Jew in the same way. And that just like his pleasure is in Hashem, Hashem's pleasure is in the Jew. So it's not about what's going to happen, it's just about this dove-like bond where there's just nothing else. That's my dove. Higher than dove, the next level is Hashem calls us my complete one. My complete one means that the Jewish people become Hashem's partners. That, so to speak, Hashem needs us. That we feel that Hashem's objectives are only completed through our participation. Being a dove means that you have a vivid, clear perception of godliness. That it's a very deep experience, and it's a very tangible experience, and Hashem's truth becomes very clear and vivid to you, and it touches you, and you're full of pleasure. That's dove. But being Hashem's complete one is not about you and your feelings. It's about satisfying what Hashem's desire. Like Esther fulfilling the will of Mordechai. It's not about what she thinks, what she feels. She's about what does Mordechai need to accomplish. So this is the highest of levels. This is where you're not. It sounds like to me like chapter 10 in Tanya, where the Alter says the highest level is when you're not thinking about you, you're thinking about causing pleasure to Hashem. So what's Hashem's pleasure? Hashem's pleasure is in this world, that we do something here, in the world of action. So in this physical world, where there is the opposite of holiness, the opposite of light, there's darkness, and the Yid transforms the darkness to light and does what Hashem wants, and makes a home for Hashem here, that is when he's called my complete one. That's what makes him complete. That he's, so to speak, makes Hashem complete, because he's satisfying the desire of Hashem. So that highest of levels, where you're b'nei aliyah, you're not thinking about yourself, is connected to the first step. That first step of opening up for Hashem, turning towards Hashem, summoning that deepest core, that's connected to the highest level. The verse continues, and the verse says in Song of Songs, after Hashem makes this plea, he says, "Please open up for me, because my head is full of dew." The idea of dew means Hashem says, just like dew never stops, the world always has dew, unlike rain, which is brought to the world through the merit of the Jewish people, dew comes to the world without any merit. So Hashem says to us, I love you unconditionally. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what's happening. Even if you don't deserve anything, Hashem says, I'm still going to give you. So that's one idea of do. The second idea of do is Hashem says, open up for me like the opening of the needle, and I'll open up for you like the opening of the entrance to the temple. Hashem says, I'm going to give you a lot more. You open up for me, and Hashem says, we'll reach a place where there are no doors. The entrance to the temple, the entrance of the Heichel rather, was a huge entrance, and it had no doors. It was never closed. So Hashem is saying, there's so much you could reach with your efforts. What you would do with your efforts, Hashem says, and you know what's going to happen? I'm going to bring you to a place where there's no interruptions, no separations, there are no doors, a place which is far beyond anything you could reach. That's all Hashem's pitch to us. Do this, and we'll go places. It'll be amazing. What do we respond to Hashem? The Jewish people say, I've taken off my clothing. How can I get dressed? You want me to open the door? I'm not dressed. What's the idea of the clothing? The clothing refers to the clothing of mitzvahs. When a Jew does a mitzvah, he brings a garment to his neshama. Because of the exile, both the exile in general and the exile inside of us, that we're in exile, in the stranger God that's in us, in the exile in the animal soul, because we're deeply in this exile. So therefore, we're not awake. Our eyes and ears are not looking at Hashem's providence, how Hashem's creating the world and taking care of us. Rather, we are totally divested from we've totally disrobed all of God's commandments, and not only do we disrobe ourselves from them, we say to Hashem, how can I start again? I don't know how to start. So what does Hashem respond to that? So the next verse in Song of Songs is, I've washed my feet, how can I dirty them? The word feet refers to the world, because the world is called Hashem's footstool. So where does Hashem rest his feet? In the world, in the Beis HaMikdash. So when the Jewish people are telling Hashem, we can't do mitzvahs, we're just not able to start this again. So the attitude of justice says to Hashem, so forget about your feet. Forget about your feet of making another Beis HaMikdash, about the world again embracing your sanctity and bringing Mashiach. It's just not going to work. They're just not interested in you. So what does Hashem respond to that? That's what we say, that's what the attribute of justice says. He says, forget about them. Don't take care of them. You stay asleep. They're not interested in you. So what does Hashem respond? So it says, my beloved sends his hand from the hole. That this beloved, Hashem, who loves us from his very core, who says, I love you, he doesn't wait for us to open the door, but he himself makes a hole. He himself makes an opening. He doesn't wait for us to open. So although there are angels on the right and angels on the left, and there's a whole discussion in the heavenly court, Hashem comes to us from a place which is beyond all the angels. Hashem goes from under his throne of glory and digs a hole, which means that he doesn't look, he relates to us from a place which is beyond the attribute of justice and beyond the angels of merit and the angels of accusation, and he opens up for us, and he lets the inspiration from Hashem reach us. He lets his knocking at the door touch our hearts. He doesn't wait for us to open up. He goes and he allows it to touch our hearts, despite the fact that we haven't done anything. When we see that, what happens is that my innards stir for him. My innards stir for him means, because we learned yesterday, innards refer to the digestive organs that dispel from the body things that don't belong. But in the Gemara, it says that the beginning of the innards, the beginning of the intestines start from the heart. So that means there's a strong feeling for Hashem we have as a result from his reaching out to us. And this causes us to not find any rest, not find any respite from going back to the things that we were into before, to our sleep. We're not able to fall back asleep anymore because Hashem has reached out to us in such a deep way, and despite us ignoring him. So this causes Hashem to be unable to ignore him. We're not able to turn away. We have to turn back to him. We can't ignore. And then what happens is we activate our intestines. What's our intestines? We dispel from our body things that don't belong. We get rid of things in our life that are not supposed to be there. And we bring into our life things that are meant to be there. That's the idea of the intestines. So that's our response that happens because Hashem has sent his hand from that opening that he's made. So although the Jewish people say they're asleep, but their heart is awake. Who is their heart? Their heart is Hashem. Hashem is the in all places, in all times, doesn't listen to attribute of justice. Rather, he sends his hand through the opening, and that permeates permeates us. And so that way we completely transform. And not only do we have that initial opening, but more, this brings us to becoming his sister and his bride and his dove and his complete one. And that's the meaning of the verse, on that night the king's sleep was disturbed, that although the Jewish people were in a state of sleep, nevertheless, as a result of the Jewish people being in the state of sacrifice to Hashem for the whole year, that caused the king's sleep to be disturbed, and that caused Achashverosh's sleep to be disturbed, and that's why he asked the royal records. The royal records means that it wasn't just an inspiration that Hashem had and it stayed somewhere in heaven, and one day we'll see that light and glory that Hashem had for us in Gan Eden, in the afterlife. Rather, Hashem's calling for the royal records means that he brings down this love for us into time and into space, because our devotion to him also wasn't just a devotion to him that was just deep within us. When the story of Purim, the Jewish people actually exhibited their devotion to Hashem in a way that was tangible. They did, and they acted, and they thought in sync with who they were, in sync with their essence of their soul. And that's the power of the miracle. The king's sleep is disturbed, and because the king Hashem's sleep is disturbed, he awakes. That causes Achashverosh's sleep to be disturbed, and therefore the Jewish people are blessed to have the 4 blessings enumerated in the Megillah: light and joy and gladness and honor. And as the Talmud says, light refers to Torah, and joy refers Erez or Torah, simple to Yantiv. Joy refers to Yantiv. Gladness refers to Mitzvah, Bris Milah, and glory refers to Tefillin. So we had all those blessings, all those spiritual blessings, but also in a simple sense, the Jewish people are blessed with all good things, and that's the meaning of Hashem waking up from his sleep. He blesses the Jewish people with abundance and all good things until we see the coming Mashiach. We should see it happen today, as the Rizal says. That concludes the mind. When you remember what happened, and you remember with this feeling of inspiration, you cause it to happen again. You cause this revelation to happen again. And we, especially in this time of Purim, to think about how Hashem reached out to us, and think about Hashem's sleep was disturbed, and we remember it, that causes it to happen again. We should see it happen today, and we should see a transformation of all of the negative in the world. Mishkan Mashiach, l'chaim, l'chaim, gad yanteh.
Thank you.
L'chaim, l'chaim, baruch.